There's some header rows here, so we brought in a single file. And the last column we have here is the amount in local currency for each transaction. In order to be able to sum up values, we need to convert them into reporting currency, in this case USD. There's a date column here and an organization key. This key maps onto the organization table, which shows the corresponding currency for that organizational unit. In the exchange rates table, we have exchange rates to USD for each currency and date. Firstly, we want to remove header rows. In the Home tab of the ribbon, click on Remove Rows, remove top rows, and remove the top 3 rows. The column names now appear as the first row of data rather than as column headers. To fix this, click on Use First Row as Headers to promote that row to be column headers. The exchange rate data has 1 row per date, with the different exchange rates and columns. Whilst this makes it quite easy to read the numbers, it makes it challenging to perform lookups, known as mergers in Power Query, and it's just not an ideal format for working with data in Power BI. So instead, we want to bring all exchange rate values into a single column. To do this, we select the date column, navigate to Unpivot Columns in the Transform ribbon, and select Unpivot Other Columns. We now have multiple rows per date, one for each currency and date, and can now rename the columns to a more appropriate name. Now, back in the Actuals table, we first perform a lookup, known as a merge in Power Query, against the Organizations table to bring in the corresponding currency relating to the organizational unit that the transaction occurred in. We select the Organizational Key column in the Actuals table, then we choose the Organizations table underneath, and select the corresponding Organization Key in this table. We see underneath that it tells us that all the rows match, i.e. that all the organization keys that are in our Actuals table exist in our Organizations table. This is what we'd expect, and it's great that we have this check here to confirm it. Now when we click OK, this returns a column in the Actuals table which contains all of the corresponding values in the Organizations table. So this is like doing a VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP in Excel between the tables, but rather than having to have a separate formula for each corresponding value we want to return, we can just click on this expand icon and select all the matching columns from the Organizations table that we want to return. In this case, we just want to return a currency code, so we just select that column. Now we can see the currency that each transaction in the Actuals table relates to. So now in the Actuals table, we have both the date that the transaction occurs on and the currency that the transaction is in. Next, we want to do a multi-column lookup, looking up from the Actuals table against our exchange rates table, matching on both the date and currency to return a corresponding exchange rate for that date and that currency. In Excel, this would require us to firstly produce a concatenation of date and currency in both tables, but in Power Query, a multi-column lookup is much simpler. In our Actuals table, we go to Merge Queries again, and this time select the date column, hold down Control and select the currency column. We can see that both are selected. There's a small 1 and 2 against the columns to highlight the order in which we've selected them. Now when we select the exchange rates table as the table to look up against, we do the same thing. Select the date column, hold down Control, and select the currency column. It's important to bear in mind that we wouldn't have been able to do this with the original structure of the exchange rates table that had each currency as a separate column. That's why it was important for us to unpivot it first. Okay, now we see that only some of the rows match, and normally this would be an indicator of potentially missing exchange rate values, and an indication that we need to go back and populate additional exchange rates before doing this step. In our case, it's actually expected because many of our transactions are already in reporting currency USD, and we don't have an exchange rate for USD to USD, it's obviously just one. So we can accept this merge and repeat this step of expanding out the new exchange rate column to return the exchange rate. We can see here we have nulls, essentially where it wasn't able to find a match. So let's filter for that and confirm that all of those records are for USD entities. Okay, that looks like it's just USD. So we can incorporate this logic when we calculate the amount in reporting currency, which is what we'll do next. So now we want to add a calculated column with the amount in reporting currency, leveraging the exchange rate for all values which are not already in USD. To do this, we go to Add Column and then Add Custom Column which allows us to define the column with a formula. This uses the M formula language, which has some syntax similarities to Excel, and is the language that all Power Query steps are converted to, much like a macro recorder, to allow for automation. The formula we write here is amount in local currency times if the currency code is USD then 1, otherwise USD per unit. i.e., if the currency is already USD, then we just take the local currency amount. Otherwise, we multiply the local currency amount by the value in the exchange rate column. We now have the column with the amount in reporting currency, and we can check there should be no nulls in this column.